While the video game industry is massive, there are a lot of things within it that are still pretty outdated and are not completely with the times, and one of those is E3. Over the past few years, they have had some very serious competition when it comes to video game award shows and just conventions in general, but even though in March, it was reported that they were going to be taking a little bit of a break from the show. They have now officially announced that E3 is dead for good. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, I'm going to be referencing an IGN article. It says the Entertainment Software Association, or the ESA, has announced the end of E3 for good 28 years after the first event took place. So this event has been going on longer than I have even been alive, and over the years I have watched many of the E3s, and I even got to live stream only one back in 2021 when they did the digital one. But this isn't very surprising news, but it will be upsetting to a lot of people, right? Because if you are a gamer, you most likely know what E3 is, how exciting E3s have been over the span that they have been, in existence. And unfortunately, now we're left in kind of a rock between a rock and a hard place because there's really only one man running these types of larger gaming events, which is Jeff Keighley. And a lot of people do not like him. I personally am not the biggest fan of his, but it says in a statement shared on Twitter/X and with the Washington Post, the ESA said it had decided to end the expo after more than 2 decades. They simply said after more than 2 decades of E3, each one bigger than the last, the time has come to say goodbye. Thanks for the memories. And this decision isn't very surprising, I'm sure, to a lot of you, because the last E3 was held in 2019, like the last in-person event. And then a year later, the trade show was canceled due to the lockdowns. Then they brought it back, but only once with a digital showcase/event. And then they decided that they were going to cancel it for a couple of years. But now, of course, it is completely dead and it will be completely gone. But since 2021, when we had that digital event, the efforts to bring it back as a physical event had really sputtered out. In March, it looked like, E3 might have truly been dead after the ESA canceled this year's event, citing a lack of sustained interest, but it came after, obviously a number of high-profile video game companies like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft had decided to bail on it. Now, I personally think that they may have come back in some kind of limited capacity if there were many other companies that were genuinely interested. But besides, the Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, the reason, or at least a big reason they had to, cancel 2023s is because there were major companies that were backing out, besides these three, again, like EA. But of course, it says this year's event was supposed to be held from June 13th to the 16th at the LA Convention Center, the show's home for many years, and it would have been the first in-person E3 since 2019, but unfortunately that did not happen, and it will never happen again. But in my opinion, we don't really need award shows. We don't need these giant showcase events where all of these companies get together and pat themselves on the back, because the developers and platform holders can just do it themselves. It's not 15 years ago where, yes, you could, put up clips online, but ultimately everyone knew to tune in on this one night a year to watch, the biggest event in gaming, because a lot of clips can just go up on Twitter/X now. A lot of clips can just go up on YouTube. Even Ubisoft, who doesn't own a platform, has their own events called Ubisoft Forward. We live in an age where it's probably better for independent developers who have large catalogs of IPs to handle their own events instead of paying someone to put trailers up. Then they don't have to pay Jeff Keighley and in this case, the ESA, they don't have to do any of that. They can just do whatever they want. And Jeff Keighley is a major part of this because he used to help run E3, and then he decided he wasn't going to do that anymore, and he was going to go just to the Game Awards, and that's kind of where everything started to unravel for them. And the reason why he's also part of the problem is because he's really the only one running the E3 competitors at this point. We, of course, have the Golden Joysticks, which isn't Jeff, but a big award show in the industry where they do promote some games that have released throughout the year. Then we've got Summer Games Fest, which is basically a copy and paste of E3, and then the Game Awards, but both of those are ran by Jeff, and I have nothing personally against the guy, but he is completely out of touch with gamers, just like the Oscars is out of touch with moviegoers, and in my opinion, all of these events should go. None of them are necessary. Yes, E3 and Summer Games Fest have been very cool over the years because they've had hands-on gameplay showcases, big announcements, and lots of iconic moments, but over the past few Summer Games Fests and the last E3, it clearly turned into a more corporate shill event where you're promoting some companies more than others because they bought larger slots, and the Game Awards is awful because of this. This year they brought out Gonzo from the Muppets, a character nobody wanted to see. You've got Timothy Chalamet to present a rigged Game of the Year awards, which is a whole other issue because all of these shows are just becoming ways for companies to promote their products and ultimately pat themselves on the back. And it's gotten ridiculous because you can tell who paid more than others. The list of judges are filled with activists, and the nominees lists are always completely rigged, and it honestly only hurts the gaming industry because while it's massive, they're just proving how out of touch the people at the top are with gamers. Again, I like seeing these major events, but we ultimately don't need them. Companies can do their own showcases, companies can promote their own products, and we don't have to deal with these massive corporately sponsored, very cringeworthy, rigged shows. While E3, yes, has had many iconic moments over the years, I'm not sad to see it go, and I think these other shows should either take this to heart and massively change their strategies to be more in line with what gamers want and what gamers feel throughout the year when it comes to games, or they are going to follow down this path. I mean, even this article points out some of the most iconic moments in E3's history, and I'm not sitting here saying that they didn't happen. They did, and there were some wonderful moments, like Miyamoto appearing on stage with the shielded Master Sword during Nintendo's E3 2004 press conference to reveal Zelda Twilight Princess. Like, that is such an iconic moment that so many people know about, even if you didn't watch this exact press conference just because of how amazing it was. But we don't even really see that passion anymore with, the Summer Games Fests and even the Game Awards. They might bring out a Christopher Judge to present an award, and he's, of course, the voice of Kratos, so it's really cool to see this person who voice acted a character who came out in a very good game. That's cool to see, but there's not this level of passion at these events anymore, and they are constantly rushing the people who either win awards or the creatives who created a product, and then you get the moments like with Hideo Kojima, and clearly Jeff loves Kojima, so Kojima gets a larger slot than anyone else. Like, it's just sad to see, and again, it just proves how out of touch these people are with gamers in general. I don't see, Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards particularly dying anytime soon, just because there are so many companies that, yes, are currently, very interested in these events, and they still want to go to these events, and while they might promote their own products with their own showcases, they still want to be part of like one big major event a year so that they can win these little awards and say, oh my gosh, look at us, our game was nominated and our game won. But ultimately, A lot of these companies, yes, are giving up on these showcases, and I do think in a few years these will cease to exist. The Game Awards and the Summer Games Fest, and while it is a little bit sad to see something like E3 go with the way that these shows are going, I can't really say that it is very heartbreaking for me. And I know a lot of other people, while we can remember the good moments, we honestly aren't really sad to see them go overall. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.